Humans had been part of the Galactic Council for precisely 3 standard galactic years, 4 months, and 17 days when the incident occurred. In that time, we'd managed to not start any interstellar wars, which apparently was some kind of record for a newly spacefaring species. The diplomats at the United Earth Embassy loved to brag about this achievement, conveniently glossing over the fact that Captain Donna Martinez once nearly vaporized a Zentron cruiser because they'd called Earth's atmosphere quaintly methane deficient. The Krezzians were the newest species we'd established formal relations with. Picture if octopuses evolved on a planet with 3 times Earth's gravity and developed a superiority complex. 7 tentacled limbs, skin that shifted between various shades of purple depending on mood, and a face that looked like someone had stuck googly eyes on a cinnamon roll. They were also, as our diplomats had carefully noted in their briefings, aggressively friendly. The welcoming ceremony was held in Central Park, New York City, which had been modified over the years to accommodate extraterrestrial visitors, special atmospheric bubbles for methane breathers, gravity platforms for the lighter density species, and of course, the obligatory Earth is a friend to all banner that cost taxpayers roughly the same as a small nation's GDP. Ambassador Grelvax emerged from the Krezzian ship with all the pomp and circumstance of a being who believed the universe revolved around them personally. The plaza was packed with dignitaries, journalists, and carefully selected average citizens who'd been thoroughly briefed on how not to cause an interstellar incident. Among these model humans was 8-year-old Tommy Wilson, winner of the Draw Your Alien Friend national school competition, whose crayon rendition of a Krezzian had been charitably described by art critics as technically not a hate crime. Tommy stood near the front, holding his framed picture with both hands, the perfect image of childhood innocence. Ambassador Grelvax undulated toward him, clearly recognizing the PR opportunity. Cameras focused. Smiles widened. Diplomatic staff relaxed slightly. And then Grelvax leaned forward and expelled approximately half a liter of green-tinged mucus directly onto Tommy's face. The silence that followed was the kind you only get when thousands of people simultaneously think, "Did that just happen?" Tommy, to his credit, didn't immediately scream. He just stood there, dripping with alien saliva, his expression transitioning from shock to the universal childhood look that precedes a total meltdown. "Most excellent," boomed Grelvax through his translator. "I bestow upon this small human the highest honor of my people." That's when Tommy started wailing at a pitch that made several of the more sensitive-eared aliens clutch their hearing appendages in pain. United Earth Ambassador Priya Kapoor's professional smile didn't falter, though those who knew her well later reported her left eye developed a twitch that would persist for weeks. Security personnel moved in, surrounding Tommy, who was now trying desperately to wipe the viscous fluid off while sobbing about alien boogers. And just like that, humanity's perfect diplomatic record went right down the interstellar toilet. The immediate aftermath resembled nothing so much as a sitcom where everyone talks at once and nobody listens. Tommy was whisked away by hazmat-suited medical personnel, still wailing about cooties and alien diseases. His parents oscillated between horror that their child was covered in extraterrestrial spit and concern that their reaction might somehow violate the carefully negotiated first contact protocols. Ambassador Kapoor's assistant was heard muttering, 3 years without an incident. 3 freaking years before being hushed by a superior. Meanwhile, the Krezzians seemed genuinely confused by the commotion. Ambassador Grelvax's skin had turned a perplexed lavender as he watched humans scurry around like ants whose hill had just been kicked. "Why do the humans act distressed?" he gurgled to his assistants. "I have bestowed the blessing of moisture upon their young. This is our highest honor. On Krez, warriors compete for decades to receive such recognition." The news spread across Earth's networks with the speed only reserved for truly embarrassing international incidents. Headlines ranged from the somber diplomatic crisis, alien ambassador assaults child, to the tabloid slimed, "Is your child next?" Within 3 hours, General Maxine Mad Max Rodriguez was pulled from her vacation in Bora Bora. Those who served under her knew 2 things: she hated being called Mad Max to her face, and her vacations were sacrosanct. The fact that she was now striding through United Earth Defense headquarters in flip-flops, a half-buttoned tropical shirt, and an expression that could curdle milk meant things were serious. "Someone please tell me," she said in the dangerous quiet voice that had once made an Arcturian war chief wet himself, "why I was extracted via emergency teleport from the first vacation I've taken in 7 years because an alien hocked a loogie on a kid." Admiral Jefferson cleared his throat. "General, the Krezzians are claiming it was a sign of respect." "And do we believe them?" She fixed him with a stare. "Xenoanthropology confirms it's a legitimate Krezzian custom. A way of sharing their planet's unique bacterial biome, apparently. In their culture, it's like being knighted." General Rodriguez pinched the bridge of her nose. "So we're saying the alien didn't actually mean to insult us by using a child as a spittoon?" "That's correct." "And how's the kid?" A medical officer spoke up. "Tommy Wilson is physically fine. The Krezzian secretions are harmless to humans. Mostly glucose compounds and some trace minerals. Basically fancy sugar water." "Well, thank God for small mercies," Rodriguez muttered. "And the diplomatic situation?" This time Ambassador Kapoor herself answered. "Deteriorating. The Krezzians don't understand why we're upset. They think we're rejecting their highest honor. The Galactic Council representatives are treating this as a simple cultural misunderstanding, and, frankly, they find our reaction somewhat amusing." "Amusing?" Rodriguez's voice dropped another dangerous octave. "Yes. The Vulpexi ambassador actually chuckled and said something that translates roughly to the younglings always overreact to their first cross-cultural faux pas. They're treating us like we're children throwing a tantrum." Rodriguez's eye twitched. "Are they now?" "The Krezzians have offered to explain their customs more thoroughly but refuse to issue an apology. They believe they're the wronged party." "And what does the president say?" She's furious. Tommy Wilson's parents are personal friends of hers from Iowa. But more importantly, Earth citizens are demanding action. The video of the incident has been viewed 17 billion times. We need to respond firmly without escalating. "Firmly without escalating," Rodriguez repeated flatly. "And you called me, the head of Earth's combined military forces, for this balanced approach?" Ambassador Kapoor met her gaze steadily. "We called you because the Krezzian diplomatic vessel is actually a disguised warship, and they've just activated their defensive systems for precautionary reasons. We need options." Rodriguez sighed, looking down at her flip-flops. "I knew I should have gone to Mars instead. Nobody ever invades during Mars vacations." By evening, news networks worldwide were showing split-screen images. On one side, Tommy Wilson's tear-streaked face covered in alien spit, on the other, Ambassador Grelvax giving what he believed was a conciliatory statement, but which human translators were struggling to sanitize as he repeatedly referred to humans as delightfully primitive moisture preservers who hoard their secretions selfishly. The Galactic Council, in its infinite wisdom, issued a statement urging perspective and cultural sensitivity, reminding Earth that as newcomers to galactic society, humans should approach misunderstandings with the open-mindedness expected of evolving species. Privately, several council races were placing bets on how quickly humans would back down. The odds heavily favored immediate capitulation with embarrassed apologies. They really should have paid more attention in their history classes. The room where the fate of interspecies relations would be decided was, ironically, decorated with historical peace accords. The Nuclear Disarmament Treaty of 2037, the Mars Colony Independence Agreement, the Pan-Asian Alliance Charter, all testaments to humanity's capacity to choose diplomacy over destruction, all being thoroughly ignored by the 11 grim-faced individuals seated around the obsidian conference table. Proportional response, President Eliza Chen said, emphasizing each syllable like they were separate sentences. I want options that send a message without starting an interstellar war 3 years into our membership. General Rodriguez, now properly uniformed but no less irritated, pulled up a holographic display. Technically, we have 3 categories of response: diplomatic, economic, and military. Let's start with diplomatic, the president suggested. Rodriguez gave a smile that contained no humor whatsoever. We issue a formal protest, they ignore it. The Galactic Council pats us on the head and tells us to grow up. Next option? You're not even trying, Max. With all due respect, Madam President, I was called back from vacation for this. If you wanted sunshine and rainbows, you should have called the Agriculture Secretary. Ambassador Kapoor intervened smoothly. Economic sanctions would be more impactful. The Krezzians rely on Earth for certain rare minerals, which they can get elsewhere at slightly higher prices, countered the Commerce Secretary. It would be an inconvenience, not leverage. The door opened, and a disheveled man with wild gray hair and mismatched socks shuffled in, muttering to himself. Several people around the table groaned audibly. Professor Thornhill, the president acknowledged with remarkable patience. Glad you could join us. Professor Jack Thornhill was Earth's leading xenobiologist, who had spent 30 years studying alien biology before first contact was even established. He was brilliant, eccentric, and had absolutely no filter between his brain and mouth. Yes, alien spit crisis. Very fascinating case study in xenocultural misunderstanding, he said, dropping a stack of tablets onto the table. So, did you know Krezzians evolved from marine creatures that communicated partially through chemical exchanges? Their saliva contains neural proteins that transmit emotional states. For them, spitting is literally sharing a piece of their consciousness. That's actually useful context, admitted Rodriguez. Of course it is, Thornhill snorted. And completely irrelevant to our response, which should obviously be Operation Kleenex. The room went dead silent. President Chen's voice was carefully controlled. Professor, that file is classified beyond even this room. How do you know that name? Thornhill blinked owlishly. I designed the biological components. Did nobody read my report? Typical bureaucratic oversight. Rodriguez leaned forward. You're suggesting we deploy an untested weapon system because an alien spit on a child? Oh no, Thornhill replied cheerfully. I'm suggesting we threaten to deploy it. Massive difference. Krezzians have 17 different mucus membranes and are pathologically terrified of tissue degradation. Simply the concept of Operation Kleenex would be psychologically devastating. The Defense Secretary looked skeptical. We developed that as a last resort option for full-scale invasion scenarios. This seems excessive. Does it? Thornhill challenged. They came to our planet, disrespected our customs, assaulted a minor, refused to apologize, and are now literally laughing at us in the Galactic Council. The entire galaxy is watching to see if humanity can be pushed around. This isn't about one child with alien spit on his face, it's about establishing our position in galactic politics for the next century. The president studied him. Sometimes I forget you were military before you were a scientist. Marine Force Recon, 2042 to 2051, Thornhill replied with unexpected crispness. I believe in science, diplomacy, and carefully calibrated intimidation when necessary. Over the next 12 hours, Earth's defense systems quietly went to heightened alert status. Military satellites shifted positions. Dormant defense platforms awakened. To the casual observer, it might have seemed like standard military exercises. To more sophisticated watchers, it resembled preparation for conflict. The Galactic Council sent 3 increasingly patronizing messages, each basically amounting to now, young species, let's not be hasty. Their communications suggested humans were having an emotional overreaction, and perhaps Earth representatives needed time to process their feelings appropriately. Each message was met with the same response: a formal acknowledgement receipt, nothing more. On certain secure channels, references to Operation Kleenex began appearing. Nothing specific, just enough to be noticed by those listening. The Galactic Council's initial amusement was slowly being replaced by confusion. This wasn't following the expected pattern for new species integration incidents. By now, humans should have been desperately trying to save face while accepting whatever compromise was offered. Instead, they were methodically preparing as if for war, all because of a single expectoration on a single human offspring. How utterly, bizarrely disproportionate. How completely unpredictable. How unsettlingly human. The Galactic Council chamber resembled nothing so much as a cosmic theater in the round, designed to accommodate over 300 species and their various environmental requirements. Some delegates floated in specialized atmosphere bubbles. Others were represented by mechanical proxies. A few existed as pure energy contained within crystalline matrices. At the center of this diversity stood Ambassador Kapoor and General Rodriguez, looking deceptively small and vulnerable compared to the various exotic beings surrounding them. This was, of course, by design. Earth's diplomatic corps had learned quickly that being underestimated had tactical advantages. High Chancellor Sorlach, a 12-foot-tall insectoid whose species had been spacefaring when humans were still figuring out bronze, clicked his mandibles impatiently. "The Council recognizes Earth's representatives," he chittered. "We understand you wish to address the unfortunate cultural misunderstanding with the Krezzian delegation." Ambassador Kapoor stepped forward. Her voice, though soft, carried perfectly through the chamber's acoustics. "Unfortunate cultural misunderstanding. An interesting choice of words, Chancellor." "It is the accurate description," rumbled Ambassador Grelvax from his moisture-rich pod. "We bestowed honor. You took offense where none was intended." His skin rippled with purple indignation. "Let me ensure I understand correctly," Kapoor continued pleasantly. "Your position is that because in your culture, expelling bodily fluids onto someone is a sign of respect, we should simply accept that a representative of your government covered a human child in mucus during a public ceremony?" Put so bluntly, several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Grelvax's translator emitted a sound like someone gargling marbles. "Your cultural ignorance is not our diplomatic failing." General Rodriguez stepped forward. Unlike Kapoor's diplomatic refinement, she radiated controlled aggression in a way that transcended species barriers. Even delegates from warrior cultures straightened slightly. "Let's be perfectly clear," she said, her voice clipped. "Earth acknowledges that cultural differences exist. We even accept that no malice was intended. But intent doesn't negate impact." High Chancellor Sorlach's antennae twitched. "What precisely does Earth request to resolve this matter?" "Three things." Rodriguez held up fingers one by one. "First, a formal apology from the Krezzian government to Tommy Wilson and his family. Second, a binding agreement that no Krezzian will engage in expectoration-based ceremonies with humans without explicit prior consent. Third, the Galactic Council will establish clear protocols requiring all member species to research and respect the physical autonomy customs of other species before diplomatic engagements." The chamber erupted in chittering, gurgling, and various other species-specific sounds of consternation. "This is unprecedented," declared the Vulpexi representative, their fox-like features contorted in shock. "To demand a formal apology for a simple cultural misunderstanding." "You have 48 standard hours to comply," Rodriguez interrupted. The chamber went silent. "48 hours?" repeated Chancellor Sorlach. "Or what, precisely?" Rodriguez smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Or Earth will consider diplomatic relations with the Krezzian Empire to be irreparably damaged, and we will take appropriate measures to protect our citizens from further cultural misunderstandings." Ambassador Grelvax's skin turned a pale lavender. Is that a threat of military action over a spitting ceremony? This is absurd. The Council will never. Operation Kleenex, Rodriguez said quietly. The effect was electric. Several military attaches visibly reacted. The Zenturan ambassador dropped a data pad. Most interestingly, the Krezzian ambassador's skin turned a sickly gray purple. That's a designation we've intercepted in your communications, stuttered a council security officer. Our analysts believed it to be routine military exercise designation. It's not, Rodriguez replied simply. Ambassador Kapoor smoothly stepped forward again. We sincerely hope this matter can be resolved diplomatically within the specified time frame. Earth values its place in the galactic community. We would hate for an unfortunate, cultural misunderstanding to escalate unnecessarily. With that, the human representatives bowed formally and exited the chamber, leaving behind a stunned silence. Within an hour, betting pools across 17 sectors had completely reversed their odds. What had begun as humans will certainly back down shifted dramatically to Krezzians will issue full apology within 24 hours. Nobody quite knew what Operation Kleenex entailed, but the name alone had caused the Krezzian ambassador's skin to turn a color typically only seen when they were facing imminent death. Among species that communicated through chemical secretions, anything referencing the removal or destruction of such fluids triggered primal fear responses. The Galactic Council's intelligence division scrambled to uncover details. Their most concerning finding wasn't what they discovered, but what they didn't. There were references to the operation in Earth's secure networks, but all details were locked behind security protocols that even the Council's best infotech specialists couldn't penetrate. In bars across the galaxy, a joke began spreading: how many humans does it take to bring the Galactic Council to crisis? Just one small one, covered in spit. Nobody was laughing harder than Commander Zella of the Paxian Defense Force, who had spent years warning her superiors that humans were not the charming, primitive newcomers everyone assumed. Her reports on Earth's military history had been repeatedly filed and ignored. Now, as the countdown clock to humanity's deadline ticked away, her communicator was suddenly flooded with urgent messages from those same superiors. Too late, she murmured, watching news feeds as Earth's defense grid visibly activated. They're about to learn what I've known since I studied human history: never, ever mess with their young. At the 36-hour mark of humanity's ultimatum, the first signs of real panic began to emerge across the galaxy. The Krezzian homeworld moved its defense fleet into high alert status. 3 separate Galactic Council diplomatic teams were dispatched to Earth in hopes of negotiating an extension. Trading markets in 17 sectors began showing volatility as investors hedged against the possibility of actual conflict. I don't understand, complained the Vulpexi ambassador to her staff. It's just one human offspring. They produce millions of them. Why would they risk interstellar relations over something so trivial? Commander Zella, who had been invited to provide insight to the Council's crisis team, sighed heavily. That's exactly why you don't understand humans. To them, each offspring is unique and irreplaceable. Their entire society is structured around protecting their young. In their history, harming a child even accidentally has triggered disproportionate responses countless times. But their ultimatum expires in 12 hours. The bureaucratic process to approve a formal Krezzian apology takes at least 72. Zella shrugged. Then I suggest you find a way to expedite it, because I've analyzed the data on Earth's military mobilization, and they are not bluffing. What exactly is Operation Kleenex? Asked a nervous council analyst. Unknown, admitted Zella, but I suspect it's specifically designed to target Krezzian biology. Humans are remarkably efficient at developing species-specific countermeasures. On Earth, General Rodriguez was enjoying a cup of coffee in her office when Professor Thornhill burst in without knocking. They're panicking, he announced gleefully. 17 Krezzian diplomatic vessels just entered the solar system. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. 3 different species have offered to mediate. Rodriguez sipped her coffee. Good. The beauty of it, Thornhill continued, practically bouncing, is that we didn't even need to develop the full Operation Kleenex capacity. Just the name and concept were enough. Who says we didn't develop it? Rodriguez replied mildly. Thornhill froze. You actually built it? The targeted mucus membrane disruptor was just theoretical. I never provided final specifications for. Jack, Rodriguez interrupted. Do you think I called you back just for your pretty face and charming personality? We needed your theory to become reality, and quickly. But the ethical implications. The biological targeting. Me. Relax, she smirked. We didn't build it, but they don't know that. Thornhill collapsed into a chair. You militaristic sociopath. I think I just lost 3 years of my life. Consider it your contribution to Earth's security. Besides, you're the one who named it Operation Kleenex in your original proposal. Did you really think that wouldn't get their attention? It was a joke. Scientists have humor too, you know. Their banter was interrupted by an urgent communication. Ambassador Kapoor's hologram appeared between them. The Krezzian Emperor himself is requesting direct communication, she announced. And the Galactic Council has unanimously approved emergency protocols to expedite a formal apology. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. With 6 hours to spare. I'm almost disappointed. What followed was a flurry of diplomatic activity unlike anything the Galactic Council had seen in centuries. The Krezzian Imperial Apology Decree, a document that typically took months to prepare, was drafted, approved, translated and transmitted in under 4 hours. It contained what xenolinguists would later describe as the most profusely apologetic phrasing possible in the Krezzian language, bordering on existential self-deprecation. More fascinating to galactic observers was the revelation of humanity's true military capabilities. As part of the resolution, Earth agreed to a good-faith disclosure of certain defense systems, a calculated move that left many spacefaring races reassessing their intelligence on the newcomers. Commander Zella's analysis was circulated to stunned military leaders across the galaxy, while humanity presents itself as primarily diplomatic. Their defensive and offensive capabilities have been deliberately understated. Their technology, while not the most advanced, has been specifically designed with redundancy and adaptive countermeasures that suggest they have always expected conflict. Most concerning is their psychological willingness to escalate dramatically when their cultural values are threatened. The unofficial translation, as one Zenteran general put it, they're crazy enough to start a war over spitting on a kid, and they're actually prepared to win it. The formal apology ceremony was held at the same location as the original incident, though with significantly more security and cultural advisors present. Tommy Wilson stood with his parents, looking somewhat bewildered by his sudden elevation to pivotal figure in interstellar relations. Emperor Vex Corax of the Krezzian Empire, who had never before left his homeworld for a diplomatic matter, personally addressed the Wilson family through a translator. The ceremony was broadcast to trillions across the galaxy. On behalf of the Krezzian people and our ancient traditions, I extend our deepest regrets for the distress caused by our misguided attempt to honor young Tommy Wilson, the Emperor gurgled solemnly. We now understand that physical autonomy, especially of offspring, is sacred to humans. This value will be respected in all future interactions. Tommy, who had been carefully coached, stepped forward. I accept your apology, Mr. Emperor. My mom says different people have different ways of being nice, and sometimes we get confused. The simplicity of the child's response captured hearts across species barriers. Within hours, different ways of being nice became a catchphrase in diplomatic circles. What few outside Earth's highest military echelons knew was that Tommy had gone off script. He was supposed to recite a formally crafted acceptance prepared by Earth's diplomatic corps. Instead, he had spoken from the heart and inadvertently provided the perfect resolution. Later that evening, at the official reception, General Rodriguez found herself standing next to Commander Zella, the Paxian who had correctly assessed humanity's response. "You knew we weren't bluffing," Rodriguez observed. Zella's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I've studied your species more thoroughly than most. Your historical response to threats against your young is consistent. And yet your reports were ignored. Most species evolve beyond tribalistic protection instincts as they advance. Yours channeled them into sophisticated systems." Rodriguez smiled slightly. "We found other ways to be nice. The galactic media dubbed it the Spittle Crisis, and it became standard curriculum in diplomatic training across the Council. The incident fundamentally altered how established spacefaring races viewed humanity. What had been patronizing amusement at the newcomers transformed into cautious respect. The Galactic Council unanimously adopted the Physical Autonomy Protocol, requiring all member species to file comprehensive reports on their physical interaction customs before diplomatic engagements. Some cynically noted it should have been called the Don't Make Humans Mad Protocol. As for Operation Kleenex, rumors and speculation ran wild. Some claimed it was a targeted biological agent that could dissolve Krezzian mucus membranes within seconds. Others insisted it was a massive fleet of stealth ships capable of blockading the Krezzian homeworld. The truth remained classified, known only to a select few who found the galaxy's theories endlessly amusing. Tommy Wilson grew up to become an influential xenoanthropologist, specializing in preventing cultural misunderstandings. His textbook, Different Ways of Being Nice, a practical guide to interspecies diplomacy, became standard reading at academies across the galaxy. And generations of diplomats, both human and alien, learned the unwritten rule that eventually found its way into every species' first contact protocol when dealing with humans, and never mess with their cubs unless you're prepared for tissues at 20 paces.